What's up everyone, Alex here, and welcome to my little corner of the internet. I literally got home from work because I had an early day at work and came home early and just sat down and started recording. I'm still in my work clothes. It's not even like an announcement sort of thing. I just wanted to get started on doing this video, and I wanted to talk about just over time what the Neutrois label means for me and what neutrality means for me, but comparing it to how I used to talk about it in past videos, because I don't know what that sound was that came out of my mic. What in the world? My mic arm popped. It made a really weird noise. But I wanted to kind of compare, I guess, the timeline of me talking about gender neutrality. I have done so many videos on like what malehood means to me, what neutrality means for me, and over time I feel like the language I've used to talk about those experiences has slowly kind of like evolved and changed, and it's especially apparent before I came out as bigender, like noticing all of the little intricacies, all of the different, like, just how I talk about alignment, how I talk about what my neutral gender, like how it affects the male side of my identity. So there's so much that has changed over time, and I wanted to kind of go over. I took notes. I wasn't going to just play previous videos for this. It was really just a, like, I rewatched some of my older videos, and I wanted to kind of go back over them and talk about, at least there's two videos I wanted to talk about. I had a video literally just called Gender Neutrality. It was from January 2021, so it was before I came out as bigender in May of that year. I came out as bigender May 3rd, 2021, and this video was January 2021. So definitely the inklings of something going on, but not like I wasn't quite there yet. So in the video, I talked about being drawn to neutrality, but never knowing like why that was. And for a while, I thought that Neutrois was not a label that would particularly fit me because it encompassed genderlessness. And for a while, I thought that that's what Neutrois was like a null gender. And I didn't realize that it encompassed so many different things, and out of the different ways people use the label, I could choose a way to use that label that reflected my neutral identity rather than implying that there was a genderlessness. Now I understand that, like, Neutrois encompasses a bunch of different kinds of experiences, neutrality, genderlessness, and other, like, kind of tangential experiences, including like gender ambiguity or androgyny, and it can differ from person to person. Like it's like any label, really. It is uniquely one's own label. That's just kind of how like a lot of labels work. In the video I talked about, I wasn't sure if I should call myself a demi-neutral, demi-man, a gender-neutral man. Like, I kind of talked about calling myself Neutrois in different ways, because if I'm a demi-boy, then like that other part is also a partial gender. So I was like, I don't know if it should be demi-boy, demi-Neutrois, demi-neutral boy. Like, I was trying to kind of figure out the best way to talk about this. So like, this was before coming out as bigender, of course. So I was seeing this as a singular male, like gender neutral male experience where the two parts came together as like one monogender. So I was trying to put a name to that experience and figure out a way to talk about being those two things at the same time. I talked about how I knew that the Neutrois label was the right term for me, and I talked about going through the long list of things I knew that the other part of my gender wasn't. I had always pushed this thing where, like, start with what you know you're not, make a list of, like, it can't be these at all. and then go through the what ifs after that. So I had said, like, I know it's not fluid, it's not flux, it's not female, it's not genderless. And I even said it's not multi-gender in a couple videos around the same time. I talked about genders I know I'm not, and multi-gender was one of the ones that I put on my list. So not a foolproof thing. No statement I can make about navigating gender could ever be universal. I'm a white guy. Like, people's experiences are so different that, like, you could take my advice, but you're probably going to find something that works better for you than it does for me. It just, like, I don't know. It just differs from individual to individual. But I had said that it wasn't all these things. It's not an alignment. It feels like a solid or tangible gender. So just about all those are true, other than saying that it's not multi-gender. But, you know, having a solid or tangible gender, I knew for sure there was a distinct gender there. Not that I, like, was aligned with a partial neutrality or anything like that. I knew that there was a solid gender there. I didn't call it a complete gender. It wasn't like two 100% genders coming together to make my one experience. And I had said, no one asked what the other part of my gender was. I thought that I never had to quantify or explain this other part of me unless it was relevant. So it was like, yeah, I'm a demi-boy, but there's, like, other parts to it, which is kind of how I've always been, where it's like, I'm a non-binary man, but there's way more to it than that. And, you know, let's have a discussion about it sometime. Like, I've always been that way, at least, like, openly. But the Neutrois part of my identity felt like I was keeping it sort of hidden. Like, I didn't want to, like, talk about it. Like, I'm a man, and then there's, like, this not so conforming part of my gender that, like, internalized exersexism. I, like, internalized a lot of, like, embarrassment and shame for having a gender that was definitely not the norm, definitely not conforming. I don't typically like conforming because, like, the male part of my gender is not conforming. I don't consider it that anymore. Like, I don't like that conformant is a category on some gender wikis, and or conformant terms is a category, which, like, yes, that can work, but then you get like terms that are, like, male aligned, and it ends up on, like, the conformant terms category, and it's like, the alignment implies that there's non-binarity there, or, like, there's some kind of non-conformity there. So, like, I don't want to consider my manhood as being conformant just for being manhood. So I kind of viewed it that way early on, where it was like, I've got my, like, conformant side, and then I've got my queer side, and it was more like I was seeing it like, I have the part of me that I'm open and honest about, and then this other part where I don't really talk about it except for, like, online spaces. So I had to work through that. For the most part, a lot of this is still holds true. Like, my experience with the Neutrois label, there's definitely some little things that, like, ended up changing, like, not viewing it as a monogender, because I came out as bigender. And then I came out as bigender 5 months after this video, for the most part, 5-ish months. And I ended up coming out with a couple videos where it's like, I revisited, like, what Neutrois meant to me, and then I did, like, what malehood means to me. But what Neutrois means to me, I posted this in August, so a few months after coming out as bigender. I had this video talking specifically about what Neutrois means and what my views are on it in the context now of being bigender. I had said that Neutrois mostly fits because of the third genderedness of it. I liked that it was other, but not so far from convention. I don't think I fully understood what Maverick meant at this time. I was aware it was a term, but I knew that like Neutrois didn't really approach that far from convention. Yeah, I guess convention. But I, like, after this video, a couple of years after this video, I started saying that Neutrois was a placeholder term for a nebulously neutral gender that I did not have a name for. I resonated with most of the Neutrois label, not all of it, so I was still not super into the genderlessness of it. And I still had worries that people would get the wrong idea. But I knew there was something I wanted, some kind of term. I'm going to boldface this because I haven't said it yet. You don't know what it is, but I'm boldfacing part of my notes and I will revisit that. But I knew that I didn't, like, Neutrois was just like, that's what I call it because it's the closest thing to, like, what I could call this. So I don't know. That's where I'm at right now. Bigender, male, and Neutrois for now, sort of thing. Like, that's where I was going with that. I talked about how some days I felt almost entirely male, while other days I felt more gender neutral. This is still true for the most part. But I don't always feel like I'm feeling more male, I'm feeling more neutral. Sometimes it feels like something outside of that entirely. And I think that's the trans Mavrin in me coming out, where, like, I just have this aspect of my gender and I don't have a Mavrin gender and I'm not Mavrin aligned, really. Like, or does trans Mavrin mean I'm Mavrin aligned? I don't know what that means for me. Maybe I am Mavrin aligned, but I prefer not to be aligned at all. But there are some days where it feels like my gender is just like unexplainable out there. I like that. Unexplainable out there. That's a label. That's a term. Capitalize it. That's what I wanted on a shirt. I had said that I experienced malehood through a neutral lens, a gender neutral man, a Neutrois man, etc. This is still true. I find that my malehood is of a neutral quality for the most part. I had said that malehood was the baseline on which a foundation that I built my gender on. This is still true for me. It's mostly male with less than half a portion of neutrality is what I wrote here, for how I feel now. I don't know. I've always felt mostly male. And then this like Neutrois part of me kind of felt like it subdues my gender a little bit, where it has a sort of a neutralizing kind of quality. It kind of like mellows it out. So it's why I call myself demi boy or a demi guy. And in this video, I described Neutrois as being more queer or more non-binary. It was another attempt at othering my Neutrois identity, seeing it as something separate from my malehood, to the point where, like, I had my male side and then the queer side, as if my malehood isn't queer, as if I don't experience queer malehood. For some reason, I just saw these as two separate things, because I guess it made it easy to keep it kind of on the down low. So there was that I was working through. I had talked about, accommodating your gender. If you have multiple genders, like having a set of pronouns that reflects one versus a different set of pronouns to reflect the other, changing the way that you express yourself, changing your presentation to kind of match or accommodate the two or more genders that you have. So that's how I was seeing it. That's how I was seeing it for myself. I was bigender, and I had the he, him, male side that dressed masculinely, and then I had the AM Neutrois side where I dressed more non-conforming or more like soft mask. I did for a while experiment with like more feminine presentation, and I do like it. I just can't find clothes that I feel comfortable in. So there's also that. I said that I had an underlying malehood no matter what. That's true for the most part. There's such a focus on malehood. My God. I had said that taking on the Neutrois label was a way to describe a non-binary male experience that doesn't fit in with cis malehood. Nowadays, my Neutrois identity feels like it stands on its own, but not separate from my malehood. It's just there's nowadays less of an emphasis on malehood. Still an emphasis, but I have two genders. They stand alone. I need to allow them to breathe and to exist on their own. I mentioned the fear of being degendered, which I still struggle with this. I'm afraid that people will use entirely neutral or ungendered language to refer to me, knowing that I'm non-binary and I prefer masculine terms. It's safe to assume masculine terms for me. And nothing like, I don't need, like, what would you call them? Like neo-referential terms, referential terms for non-binary individuals. I'm starting to really connect with the word NBAN, which is like a non-binary adult, and then NBAN is the plural. And I do like that, and I use it a lot. It sounds weird saying it because I'm used to man and men. NBAN, NBAN. I guess it's not that bad. Like, I won't use NB. Just to be silly, I might use NB for myself, but like that, it's a diminutive, and a lot of people are trying to pull away from that. The only other term is non-bin, which is the age non-specific non-binary. But no, for the most part, I prefer masculine terminology. Like, he, him is a very safe assumption for me, to be totally honest. People ask me my pronouns, particularly the place I work, because a lot of queer people like to work there. So people ask me my pronouns, and I'll say he, him's good for now. He, him's okay for me. And I won't definitively be like, it has to be he, him. Like, what are you talking about? Have you seen my face? In the video, I talked about calling my presentation soft masculine, talked about how being masculine helps me pass as male, but otherwise it doesn't play a part in my gender. It's where I had said that, you know, masculinity, like, I don't use transmasculine as a term for myself. That's where this is coming from. That's the context of this, where like transmasc, just despite being a transgender man and transitioning in a way that looks masculine, I don't call myself masculine aligned. I don't have masculine genders, and I am not transmasculine. I should say that, not that I don't call myself transmasculine. I should just flat out say I'm not transmasculine. I think the definitive nature of saying it that way helps people understand, like, it's not always, people aren't always like able to fit into certain boxes. The soft mask would have been like indicative of like the neutralizing or subduing nature of the neutrality that I was experiencing. It balances out my gender, turning malehood into demi-malehood. And also the not calling myself transmasculine, that was the sign that maybe there was some kind of like autonomous nature to my transgender identity. So, you know, a couple of years later, I started calling myself Transmaverin. May is a great month for self-discovery, I gotta tell you. So there was a part that I had skipped. I had bold-faced it so I could like go back to it. These were the only two videos I had like taken notes on. They were the oldest videos I could find explaining gender neutrality just on its own as a concept and what it meant for me. I, you know, watched these videos, took some notes, and I had this earlier in this video that I was just going over, the what Neutrois means to me from 2021. I had talked about Neutrois feeling like it was a placeholder term for me. I am like, I do all this work where I like coin terms and talk so much about gender complexities, and I want people to be aware of like the unlimited nature of gender. And how we can push the limits of gender and what gender can mean for people. And I talk a lot about very specific labels and all the underlying complexities of those, but I have never felt confident about coining a term that could fit my gender experience. Because I always talk about, like, this is what I call myself, but, like, there's so much to it that, like, there's all these little layers coming together to make this one concise identity. There's so many different moving parts. And Neutrois was always, while it described a tangible part of my gender, the actual label that goes in that space has always felt intangible to me. So Neutrois always kind of got, like, shoved to the side, and it's like, well, Neutrois is there, but, like, there's got to be something more. And I knew that I wanted to find a neutral gender that was entirely unaligned, but it was a strongly gendered experience that was not genderless, not ambiguous, a very sure this gender exists, but it is unaligned and neutral at its core. So not at all related to the binary, not at all feminine or masculine. And I had come up with the term Asteresque, and it calls back to the word stellarian, which is a stellar non-binary person, somebody who is entirely unaligned or who rejects gender alignment completely. And I liked stellarian as a term recently. I had put it in my gender hoard, and I was like, I like this within the last, like, several months. And I had linked to the original coining post because that's the part that resonated with me. The original Galactian alignments, Stellarian, Solarian, and Lunarian, kind of got jacked up when it got, like, shoehorned into this larger system of gender alignments. So Stellarian's not an alignment. It is an unalignment. It is a description for somebody who doesn't have an alignment. And it's not a gender. You can use it as a gender, but it's not, like, actually a gender. So I wanted a gender version of that. I was like, can I have stellar non-binary and keep the star theme, and it's unaligned, neutral, not genderless, not ambiguous, no gray area, a very, like, firm, tangible, solid gender that exists in that space that Neutrois was in. And I came up with Asteresque, which means star-like, and it's as if saying, like, Stellarian-like, as in related to Stellarian. I didn't go with the solar theme because Solarian already exists, and that's male aligned. I'm going to use its original coining definition because people made Solarian masculine aligned and Lunarian feminine aligned, but they were supposed to be male and female aligned, respectively, to talk about how non-binary people are forcibly binarized. I've never said that out loud, so yeah. We're forced into binaries, we're forced into alignments, and sometimes we're seen as, like, oh, you're just a woman, like, at your core, like, you're non-binary, but, like, you're really just, like, kind of sort of a woman, maybe like a demigirl. So Lunarian was coined as a way to say, like, you're a woman aligned, but you're not a woman. These ideas being aligned with a gender, not being that gender. And then Stellarian was the outlier that, a rejection of alignment or just simple unalignment. Over the years, I've always treated neutral as its own alignment, and then unaligned as something separate. Like, you could be neutral aligned or you could be unaligned, meaning it excludes everything, including neutrality. I like going back to unaligned, meaning not aligned with the binary, at least for my personal experience. And I like neutrality being related to unalignment. For a while, I believed you could be neutral aligned and somehow that was different than unalignment, and I have no idea, like, what I thought the distinction was, but all these posts and essays and other things where I talk about trying to conceptualize and give a name to neutrality and talk about what neutrality can be, I kind of just forgot that unalignment is a thing and can be its own sort of identity that is abinary. I mean, I guess being unaligned, maybe people prefer to say neutral aligned to mean unaligned because they don't want to make like a reference to like alignment. So instead of saying unaligned, they'll say I'm neutral or I have a neutral gender. It's kind of like people will say aphorian instead of abinary because it takes the reference to the binary out of it. I'm ranting at this point. I had written a whole essay on what I was looking for in a term and me coining asterisk, which will probably be the other gender that I call myself. I'm not that confident, but it is my term. It's to describe me. So I'm not really worried. Like, I would love for it to catch on. People are loving asterisk as a term. I would love to see people use this for themselves, but if not, I have a term that is all encompassing. The definition even talks about how this neutrality can soften or neutralize one's gender, like in a way. So for me, instead of just being a man, being a demiguy. So I still like the softening of gender. I like that, which is really interesting for something I want to call a solid or tangible gender. I'll get into the linguistics another time and the terminology and the everything, but I liked the idea of a neutrality that was sure, it was not ambiguous, and it's active. It acts on your gender a certain way. So all-encompassing, it's like Starlight, basically. It's really interesting. Like, there's so many things you could, like, pick apart about it. So I'm kind of proud of it. I don't know, like, how popular it'll be. I will still, I think, as just my go-to, if I'm in certain spaces, if someone knows that I'm bigender, I'm probably going to be like, yeah, I'm a man and Neutrois at the same time. But like in certain spaces where it feels a little safer to talk about, and then maybe I'll probably talk about, I coined a term to describe my neutrality, and it's not Neutrois, but it's Neutrois if it wasn't genderless or ambiguous. Is basically what I did. I'll be totally honest. Since the Galactian alignments are like a thing aligned with different types of genders, if Asteresque was an alignment, I would say aberrant aligned, strongly gendered, not feminine or masculine, not related to the binary at all, and not genderless. Did I say not genderless? Probably Strongly gendered is what I said. But aberrant aligned is probably what Asteresque would be if it was a Galactian alignment. All this searching for neutral genders, picking apart my gender hoard for all of the neutral genders I had there, and going through all the like gender wiki sites, trying to find something. I found a little bit of what I was looking for in some definitions, but not across the board, like in one definition, under one term. So I had to coin something that fit, and now I'm in the Hall of Fame of people who have coined genders that they call themselves. So Maverick is up there, Ilya Gender's there. There's a lot of them, to be totally honest. A lot of people will be unsatisfied with the current terminology and want to talk about like, or want to coin something that encompasses their gender a little bit more. There's always something, like somebody was, someone out there someday was like, I'm dissatisfied with Neutrois as a label. I'm going to coin this term called Maverick. And then someone out there said, I don't resonate with Maverick. It's almost what I need, but there's just something about it that's not fitting my experience. So here's this thing, and it's Ilya gender. And people just kind of go on and on. I'm sure my nose itches so much. Why does my nose itch so much? I don't like itching my nose on camera. I hate it, but it's so itchy. If there's cuts in the video, it's either because I was taking a sip of coffee or I was sitting here trying to itch my nose really good without making all that sound in the mic. But something's tickling, man. But yeah, like somebody had coined Iliogender because they were dissatisfied with what Maverick represented. And it's never like this term is bad, here's better term. It's really just like, I want to resonate with this gender, but there's just something about it that isn't sufficient to talk about my experience. So I'm going to come up with better language and come up with a better term. And here it is, put it out into the wild, and hopefully it resonates with somebody out there somewhere. Holy moly, 2014 was an amazing year for coin terms, and Maverick was like the powerhouse of the cell that is the neo-label community. And then Iliogender was amazing as a coin term a couple of years later. Like, this is awesome. Am I correct that was 2021? I think Iliogender was 2021. I could be so wrong, but that stands out to me. I'm actually going to check right now. Jesus fucking Christ. Iliogender was also 2014. Are you kidding me? So Maverick was big enough that like somebody out there was like, this term that's been going around, I want something similar to this, but I need it to be specific to my experience. And the person who coined it so they coined the term Iliogender 2014, and then in 2017 made the distinction between Iliogender, aporogender, Maverick, which is very important. I'm starting to like aporogender as a thing. I basically coined an aporogender. I've never used it for myself. It never, like, I say abinary, even though that can encompass things that aporogender doesn't. But like, I'm starting to like aporogender a lot as a term. And I'm liking the trifecta of Iliogender, Maverick, aporogender. They are amazing, and I might sit down and make a video on these differences, how they differ from one another, where they might overlap, where they might have similarities. This is going on way too long, but yeah, Asteresque. It's on the YB3 Wiki. It is on the YB3 blog. I should put it on my card, because I have all the labels that I use on my card and a little explanation as to what they are. I should put them there. Maybe I can pretend that Asteresque is a subset of Neutrois. So I'll still keep the part that says that I'm male and Neutrois on my little about me. But yeah, I still haven't had like an official coming out, but I have talked at length about not ditching the Neutrois label, but changing how I talk about that part of me. So yeah, next week I want to talk about what malehood means to me and revisit that, because I have talked at length about malehood, a little bit about masculinity, but I want it to be specific to malehood for me. Just what my thoughts are now versus like what I used to say in other videos before and after coming out as bigender, which I like that I have that little buffer, that little, like, I don't know what you'd call it. There's a line there between, how I viewed my gender as a monogender and then coming out as bigender, and then how I see it now that I have this different viewpoint of my gender, of my malehood being one gender out of two that I experience. But I also probably should go over what malehood means to me after having come out as transmasculine. That's fairly recent, but that would make it very relevant, very important to like go over as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Neutrality. My views on my own neutral gender have changed over the last like 4 or 5 years. I've gone through quite the journey, just exploring all these different facets of myself and finding new ways to talk about them. And now here I am with my star gender, my astral non-binary gender. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I am signing off for now. See you later.